Hi, this is Kristen Buchanan, and this is our peer review mini lecture. So the first quote I have up here is, "Only through revising and editing carefully can a writer transform a rough-hewn draft into a polished work." And this is truth about writing. The writing process requires that the writer edits and rewrites things. So often in academic writing, this is not the case. Usually students are cramming and they just have no time to waste, and so they crunch something out and turn it in the next day. And that is not going to be the best piece of writing that you have to offer. So this is why we participate in peer review. It's something that we do because it's part of the writing process and it makes your writing better. So first we're going to look at what you need to do in order to get yourself in the right frame of mind in order to revise the draft. So the first thing is to give yourself some time. Time is needed because you need to have some space in order to give yourself time to think and maybe process what you've written, think about what you've missed, or how to word something just in a specific way. So as much time as possible is always good. Another thing is that time allows you to do is to help you to clear your mind in order to give you a fresh perspective. Allowing time and mapping out when you can do certain things allows you to have some space, and that allows your mind to be able to think a little bit more clearly. Something else in the revision process is to learn from others. So you want to make sure that you're part of a writing community where you are learning from others and making sure that you understand how they react to your reading, if it is what you intend for it to be or not. And in the same token, you can learn to analyze others' work. So how have other people written about the same topic? What is it that they have done? What have they included? So this type of collaboration, it works for both the person writing the paper and the person reading the paper. It goes both ways. It's a two-way street. Another tip for revision is to read your paper aloud. I know that might seem like a strange suggestion, but that is one of the best ways of catching words that you missed or misspelled, or just ways that you maybe worded something incorrectly. So hearing your own words can clarify what you've actually written. Another tip is to outline your draft, so you can look at your paper and take a look at your actual assignment and see if it meets up with what it is you want to be doing. So you want to be able to try to identify any disconnects that are going on. So you want to address all of the parts of your subject that you are intending to. Next, you want to compare your work to others. So just as you were learning from others, you can compare your work to others as well. So when you're in a peer review situation, you are all the experts because you are the audience for what is being read. And so you want to take what the audience is saying and understand what it is that they have responded to and what you think they have done that you could maybe mirror or do a little bit differently. So when we are revising, the first thing we want to do is look at the big picture. So that means looking at your piece of writing globally. And these parts that are in colors on your screen right now refer back to our writing rubric. So these are the things that make good writing, and that's what your paper is graded on. So for looking at the big picture means that you're not just worried about where periods go and where things are misspelled, but you're actually addressing the big picture of what the assignment is asking. So some questions that relate to those particular points of the rubric are: is there a clear focus? Is the draft appropriate for the reader? So constantly keeping in mind who the audience is and whether or not there's a clear purpose to this paper. So are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? Next, Did you explore and support your ideas fully and compellingly? So that has to do with content. So is there anything missing? Did you think deeply about your particular topic? So all of those things are what goes into compelling content. The last thing about thinking about your paper globally is organization. So is the writing coherent and unified? Does it flow in a logical progression? Has to do with organization. So first you should consider all of these big, big picture ideas because you want to make sure that you address those big picture ideas before you move into the smaller picture ideas. All right, next we're moving into revising locally. So we just talked about the big picture and now we're thinking about the smaller picture. So here's some things you can do for that. First, you can reconsider the title. So the title is the very first thing that the reader sees and it should prepare the reader for what it is they are about to read. It sets your tone, it hints at your approach. So it shouldn't just be something totally plain like my assignment or um, research paper. It should actually address what it is you are writing about, not just the most generic title that you could possibly imagine, because then what's that doing for the reader? It's telling your tone is that this is a very plain run-of-the-mill paper and your approach has not been thought out very well. Another way you can revise locally is choosing your words with care. So you always want to make sure that you are choosing words that you've actually thought about. So you want to think about what words mean and how you're actually using them, and also sort of what things are conjured by different words. So some things mean one thing in one context and another thing in another context. So always think about what it is that you are trying to do. Formality. So do you need formal words? Is this a professional paper or is this a casual paper? How formal do you have to be? Being abstract is probably not the best choice. Being concrete and more specific is usually the best choice. So it doesn't matter if you're using $64 million words or not. You just have to be as specific as possible. Then things you should also consider are grammar and sentence variety and being concise. So grammar has to do with all of those rules that you've been learning or maybe not learning over the years. Sentence variety is different lengths of sentences and different ways of structuring your sentences. And being concise is not being too wordy. So look at your sentences and there's almost always words that you can take out. So try to be as concise as possible. All right, the next point we want to make is thinking about your actual peer revising. So here is where you want to take into consideration what the writer's role is and then what the reviewer's role is. So first you want to communicate. So talk and explain your goals. Since you're in an online course, you're not going to perhaps actually talk, but you might type out something that helps the other peer reviewers understand what it is you are trying to do with this paper. Then you should, after they give you some feedback, you should be able to listen openly. So don't be so married to what you've written that it makes you defensive. Please try to listen openly and respect those people's experience in reading your paper so that you can improve your paper. Ask questions. So be prepared with questions. So maybe there's areas in your paper that you know you're struggling with. So ask pointed questions that will help to answer those questions. And also ask questions to help the reviewers understand or help you understand what the reviewers are saying to you. So clarity is always key. You should definitely take notes of what they're saying. Thankfully, we are typing this all out, so those notes will be very easy for you to get. And then you should also evaluate. So evaluating is always important because it helps you to know whether or not it's it's worthwhile. So maybe the people who are in your peer review group really know what they're talking about, and maybe they don't. So it's always good to take everything with a grain of salt. And you could always check with me if you have a real question about whether something is valid or not. All right, next we have the peer editor's role to consider. So when you're on the other side of the coin, when you are looking at somebody else's paper, the most important thing is to stay positive. You want to keep this a positive experience. So you don't want to be too cruel and demeaning. You want to keep this a positive experience. This might be, you might laugh at this, but when we're doing this online, it might be easier to come off a little grumpy or not so nice. So do what you can to make sure that the recipient is sure that you're being kind in what you're saying. You want to talk to the writer. So again, this might not be literally talking, but communicate with the writer so that they're understanding what you are trying to say to them. You want to consider the big picture. So what is all those global issues that I was talking about before? You want to think about those before you focus on all those tiny grammar mistakes. Think about the big picture first. Part of staying positive is being a reader and a fellow writer. So think about this community that we're trying to be in, and just make yourself try to be as compassionate as possible. So that is the peer review process. Those are just tips for both the writer and the peer reviewer. After you finish the peer review process, then you'll be moving on to the process of proofreading before you actually submit your paper. So here are some tips for proofreading. First, again, you want to distance yourself, so give yourself some time in between doing your peer review and actually doing your revisions. Printing a hard copy is always good to try to read that aloud from the print copy. I find I grade things or read things much better when I'm actually holding them. Make marks just like you probably did in the peer review session. Make marks on your own paper for things you want to change. Here's something, the next suggestion is something I've never tried to do, but starting at the end, so reading your paper backwards helps to make sure that each word is the word that you want to choose. I know that sounds kind of weird, so if anybody tries that, let me know. And as always, that last comment there is let someone else read it. So hopefully you have someone in your life that can look over something for you. We always have smart thinking tutors available for you if you need someone else to give it a look over. So that is my 2 cents on the peer review process. As always, if you have any questions, just let me know. I will be monitoring them throughout the week, so hopefully I will know what's going on at all times, but just let me know if you have any questions.